The pace of innovation at PlayStation continues to accelerate. And as our world expands, we will stay true to our roots, to create imaginative games that foster fun while pioneering new gaming concepts. A little earlier, I was delighted to hear Andy give a shout out to one of the most iconic games of our time, Vib Ribbon. Yeah, give it up for Vib Ribbon. A personal favorite of mine that really embodies the PlayStation spirit. It wasn't a multi-million seller, but that's not the point. Vib Ribbon was unafraid to go against the tide. It was courageous in its ambition, and it brought a completely new experience to gamers. It's an incredible time to be part of the PlayStation family. I look forward to growing our gaming community through breakthrough experiences that inspire and delight. After all, guys, it's all about the games, isn't it?
That clip made the rounds on Twitter quickly following Jason Schreier's Bloomberg report on the unrest at PlayStation a little over a month ago. I think it perfectly captures a tale of two PlayStations. The one on Cloud 9 at the beginning of last generation, and the defensive, risk-averse one we have now. Let's get back to the clip in a moment because I think it's important to provide some context to the report first. The Bloomberg report centered around the Visual Arts Service Group, a Sony-owned, San Diego-based operation that helps finish off games designed at other Sony-owned studios, with things like art and animation. The report calls the team the unsung heroes of many PlayStation games. Schreier continues by saying that about 3 years ago, a handful of figures within the team decided they wanted more creative control whereby they would actually lead game development, rather than remain as a support studio on games like Spider-Man and Uncharted. The report claims that the Visual Arts Service Group had set their focus on remaking older games for the PlayStation 5 because they recognized the risks and expense involved with developing a new game from scratch. Initially, the team had their heart set on a remake of the first Uncharted game, but that idea fizzled because it was deemed too expensive and would require too much added design work. This led the team to eventually settle on a rather controversial pick, a remake of 2013's The Last of Us. And look, I get it, I understand why this is a thing that is apparently happening. As of October 2019, across both PS3 and PS4, the game has sold 20 million copies. This remake would easily become a multi-million seller. There's also a HBO series coming in the next couple years. Would sure be great timing to have a PS5 remake on store shelves to coincide with the series' release. But my main issue with The Last of Us remake is who is reportedly working on it now. And that would be the game's original creators, Naughty Dog. Yeah, that's them, the people who already made the game. This change of management happened because Sony never gave Visual Arts Service Group the funding, support, or acknowledgement they needed to succeed, the report says. If PlayStation's neglect wasn't clear enough, the group never even got a name. Sort of feels like an ugly duckling situation, which is sad as hell. So, let's break it down. Sony doesn't give them proper funding. And I'm sure the team begins to struggle, missing deadlines and development checkpoints. And so Sony sees the team failing and relinquishes the creative control they had by giving the keys back to Naughty Dog. The report also mentions that this situation has largely led to the complete disbanding of the group, including a lot of its key and influential members. That's the main focal point of the report. This idea that Sony has become super conservative in where and who it places its monetary trust. And it feels like if your name isn't referencing an awfully bad pup, Sony doesn't believe in you. Now that may seem harsh and even a little incorrect considering we're getting a AAA roguelite from a previously indie-focused developer on Friday, but Returnal feels more like an outlier and less like the rule. Why is Naughty Dog working on this? Why are these talented people who just shipped 2020's Game of the Year working on a remake of a game they already made? Where is the next great Naughty Dog intellectual property? Or a sequel to The Last of Us Part 2? Like, I know these are coming, but let them work on it. This is my main complaint, because this unnecessary cash grab is getting in the way of production on something new, something unique, something we haven't played before. Which now leads us to case 2, Sony Bend Studio and their rejected Days Gone sequel. Now don't get me wrong, I wasn't a fan of Days Gone. In fact, it's one of the very few PlayStation 4 exclusives I never even finished. It was littered with bugs, the frame rate at launch really chugged along, and at times the game felt completely unplayable, for me at least. I stopped playing to wait out a few patches for the game and never went back. But truth be told, it doesn't really matter what I thought about it, or technically what any other critic did. The game did release to mixed at best reviews, but the game sold really well for a new IP, despite Sony's best attempts to mask its success. Days Gone was the best-selling PS4 exclusive of 2019, outselling games like Death Stranding and a smaller game called Concrete Genie. It was also the 19th best-selling game of the entire year, and the 8th best-selling game on PlayStation 4, which I think is incredibly respectable for a new IP from a studio that had previously developed Resistance Retribution for the PSP, Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PS Vita, and surprisingly Bubsy 3D. Like, yeah, they made that game. I found that out while I was researching. And despite my feelings on Days Gone, I thought the IP had a lot of potential. The world was gorgeous, scavenging for supplies in various points of interest while listening out for a massive horde of freakers felt tense, and the game clearly resonated with a decent portion of PlayStation users. But according to Schreier's reporting, a sequel wasn't seen as a viable option due to the game's lengthy development and mixed critical reception. So even when a game is profitable for Sony, it still won't meet their increasingly high expectations for exclusive games unless the Metacritic score is 80 or 90 plus. This obsession with emphasizing big hits, as Jason says in his report, can also be counterproductive, because sometimes games that start small can turn into massive successes. He notes Roblox's massive $45 billion success. That's a lot of zeros. And how last year's Dreams bears some similarities. But due to Sony's hesitation and a lack of marketing, Dreams now remains tucked away, largely forgotten in the deep confines of the PlayStation Store. I could also point to games like Minecraft or PUBG that started as smaller projects before exploding and causing a cavalcade of copycats and imitations. The PlayStation of today is so far removed from the PlayStation of 2014. The PlayStation of today isn't staying true to their roots. They aren't concerned with making games that foster fun or pioneering new game concepts. The Last of Us Remake isn't imaginative. It isn't pioneering new game concepts, and that's because a little support studio wanted to do more, but felt that they had to keep to the path PlayStation was laying forward. I have to wonder if this PlayStation would have ever greenlit Dreams, or Concrete Genie, or The Puppeteer on PS3, or even kept The Last Guardian in development, or partnered with From Software on Demon's Souls back in 2008. I think we know the answer because they shuttered and reorganized Japan's studio in late March of this year. They did this because, according to reports, the company no longer wanted to produce smaller games that were only successful in Japan. I don't think it's out of line to say that new IP are the lifeblood of our industry. They drive this industry into new and exciting ventures. And even if they don't make a large impact, smaller creators can still make a dent in the growing foundations of our industry. Look at games like Hades, whose melding of roguelite dungeon crawling and character storytelling will have a far-reaching effect on the genre for years to come. Or we can circle back to Demon's Souls, which propelled From Software into gaming stardom, and whose challenging combat and maze-like exploration have forged an entirely new genre that developers like Respawn Entertainment have taken inspiration from in 2019's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Risks breed innovation, and I honestly do not believe Sony are in the market of taking risks right now. Current PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan himself said that launching new IP is a very risky move to GQ in late 2020. He equates blockbuster games with great games, saying they are making great games now and certainly plan to continue making great games. But blockbuster $100 million plus games don't necessarily equate to great games. Look at the long list of AAA failures over the past decade. Anthem, Battlefront 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and Mass Effect Andromeda. All expensive games, all AAA blockbusters. I wouldn't call any of them genuinely great games. And that's the danger in this conservative approach and investing solely in the blockbusters. It's the kind of thing that can shutter studios if things don't pan out, or shatter healthy studio culture, resulting in severe crunch like The Last of Us Part 2, and developers leaving like Sony Bend. New IP are the lifeblood of the industry, but don't take my word for it. That's what SCEE's former Vice President Michael Denny said back in 2009, saying, quote, "We must support new IP creation to survive as an industry. Consumers crave new things. If we want to stay relevant in an increasingly competitive marketplace, we need to promote new ideas. At the beginning of the PS4 generation, former CEO Andrew House shared a similar sentiment. Speaking to MCV, he said Sony was, quote, more committed to new IP establishment and delivery than most other platform holders out there. Look, I'm sure the PS5 will provide an incredible generation of experiences, like the 4 generations of PlayStation before it. But right now, in this moment, I'm not completely sold. I can't wait for Returnal, for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and after that, the sequels to some of the best games of the last generation. But we need fresh, new ideas, new characters, new locations, new gameplay innovations. We need the spirit of PlayStation back. As Sean Layden said back in 2014, it's all about the games, isn't it?